All right, well, welcome back. Today on this video, we are going to go over some stuff that newbies need to know if they want to go geocaching. But before we get started, I tell you what, I did a thing where I said you could buy me a coffee, but I'm going to change that because I'm not really a coffee person. How about this? You buy my wife a coffee, because if you make my wife happy, that makes me happy. So yeah, if you want to buy my wife a coffee, the link is in the description below. I really would appreciate that. All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to walk up to a geocache I have up the street here. And over the weekend, there was a couple new players, and you're new to this game, so make sure you get in there, look it up, go to geocaching.com, links in the description below, and actually look at what's going on there. Get on YouTube and look around there. There's a lot of people, a lot of stuff out there that'll explain to you what geocaching is all about, how to geocache, and what to expect when you're out looking for a geocache. Now, what happened to me over the weekend on this geocache that we're going to go check right now is a newer player went to look for it but couldn't find it. Instead of just marking a DNF or looking at the hint or possibly looking at the logs, they immediately went in, said it needs maintenance, and then they came back and said that it needed to be archived. And I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. The problem with that is that earlier that day, probably before they got there, somebody had found it. So I know that it's there. The person that found it, actually, I think it was a friend of theirs, actually told me, yes, it was there. But being a good geocacher, I'm gonna go up here and I'm gonna verify that it's still there. All right, well, here are some tips for newbies out there that will help you get along in this game just a little bit better. So first things first, if you want to hide a geocache, make sure that you get at least 75 finds. I want to say at least 75. They say 100, between 75 and 100 before you go to try to hide one. That at least gives you a good idea and a good mix of what's out there, how to hide it, what type of containers you want to get. And then the next thing to do is start off easy. You know, start off with those 1 and 1.5 difficulties. If you do not have a premium account, that's all you're going to be able to search for on the geocaching.com app. Just make sure that when you're out there, try some easy ones. Get a handle of it, because I will say this, there's geocaches out there that are virtually impossible to find. I've got one that's in a park down by where I live. Been searching for it for 4 years, have yet to find it. I think it's got a string of like 6 or 7, 8 or 9 DNFs, but the cache owner has went there, checked it, said that it's there. So it is definitely a hard geocache to find. All right, so the next point I want to make is when you get to the geocache and you can't find it, get on your app or even on a GPS if you have a GPSR, if you go that route, and just look for the hint. Sometimes people put hints, sometimes they don't. I generally put hints on most of my geocaches, but look at the hint, and a lot of times it'll give you a pretty good idea of where that geocache is at. Now, the hint does not give you what you want. Look in the logs, because I had one that I did for one of my Quick Cache Tuesdays where you can check that playlist out right here. It was a puzzle cache. Well, when they made the geocache or made the puzzle, it was from like 2013. Well, since 2013 and it's 2023, 10 years later, a lot of things have changed, which made it really difficult to find the final coordinates of that geocache. luckily, you know, I looked at the hint, but then I went down into the logs and I found someone in there that gave a little bit of a hint about a couple of the questions, and then I was able to figure it out and go find that geocache. And if neither of those work, then just search some more. You'll be surprised. People can get pretty creative hiding geocaches. All right, well, we're really close to where I'm going to check out a geocache that I had hidden up here. This is Your Time Is Up, and it's Pilot Park, which is one of the oldest parks in Cincinnati. I think it is the oldest park for Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah, it is there. All right, now this brings me to the next point. After you've done everything that I've talked about before this, and you still can't find that geocache, and you look at the logs and somebody had just found it, just mark a DNF and move on. I have many of them that I DNF'd on and then had to come back and find it again. So that does happen. You will DNF a geocache. It happens probably more than I'd like to admit. Don't be upset if you DNF a geocache. It's just part of the game. Don't automatically go to it needs maintenance or it needs archived, what happened to me over the weekend. Because as you've seen, that geocache is there. But what I would do is just mark in the logs and say, hey, you need to go check on this. Probably be a good idea to go check on it. That way, the cache owner can go look at that geocache, or actually like me, what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna walk up to a geocache that I found that you can check out on my Quick Cache Tuesdays, the one for Cincinnati, and there was no log in it. So I'm gonna walk up here and I'm gonna go check that out and see if I can put a log in there for him if it's still missing. Yeah, I can get through that. Ooh. And that's what's great about geocaching, is that other people will actually help other geocachers out. Just like here, I'm gonna go up here, walk through this alleyway, and I'm going to replace the log in here. If it needs it, if not, at least I'll check on it. If I have to replace the whole cache, I have an extra cache on me. It's just a nano, and it's got a log in there that I have signed from when I actually found this a few weeks ago. And if that one's missing, I'll just go ahead and put this in its place. But I know the log was missing the last time I found it, and from what I've seen online, nobody's actually went in there and found the geocache since I found it. Yep, nobody's put a log in it since I've been here. So I have the log right here, and I have my name on there and the date that I found it. And basically the way these work is you always put it in the cap first. I don't know if you can see that, but put it in the cap first, and then screw that bad boy back on there. Man, tell you what, since I have one of these, this log will not work in that one. I'm just going to replace it with the one that I had. Since it's basically the same thing as what they had. Then I'll recycle this, I'll get it back in place somewhere else. I'll have to make a little bit different log for it. But yeah, see, we got the little geocaching emblem on it. All right, let's go put it back in place. And then we will move on here. And that is that. All right, well, that's all I got. Just remember, it is a game. Have fun with it. Try not to be too serious about it. Go out there and enjoy it. And I tell you what, it'll take you to some amazing, amazing places.